Hello. Now, I am a massive fan of Busted. I first heard them when I was around 15. I think I'd heard them previously on the radio when I was younger, but I first properly heard them and probably listened to them when I was around 15, and they come on Spotify, one of the algorithmic playlists. I think it must have been what I go to school for. Listened to that song, loved it, listened to the rest of the stuff, really liked that. And then not long after a new album was actually coming out. But I loved the music, really catchy stuff, really catchy songs, and brilliant lyrics. One of the things that always stood out was the lyrics. So funny, well written. They told a story, a lot of the time clearly fiction, but really good stories. Has been subject of a bit of ridicule over the years. There are certain lyrics that always go around, since which do get picked up on. I remember Charlie was on Nevermind the Buzzcocks recently on a recent series, and they brung up some of the lyrics and they were embarrassing him with them. And he clearly was embarrassed and uncomfortable, but he took it on the chin really well. He laughed along, but you could tell he was probably a bit uncomfortable with that, being reminded of those, since you can tell he's not really proud of a lot of their oeuvre, so to speak. And you just know that he didn't write that. Those lyrics would have been written, the lyrics which he has been humiliated for, are actually written by James Bourne, who writes a lot of the lyrics on Busted into Songs. So I wanted to look, what are the funniest, most dubious lyrics James Bourne has ever written. Now, there are a lot of lyrics which are intentionally funny, and he is trying to be silly with it, but I wanted to look at what are the most dubious ones, what are the most ones where you look at and you go, huh, that's a bit weird, isn't it? In hindsight, I'm not sure it has the desired effects, that maybe it come across differently to how it initially intended. Um, some of the lyrics, now it can be hard to tell sometimes in songwriting who wrote what individual lyric. Because in songwriting credits, of course, you have a few of everyone who worked on it, but you don't know who individually did what. Uh, so it can be hard to tell sometimes if it for sure, so don't quote me on this, they might not all be James' lyrics because there is usually collaborators, so you don't know if they're all his, or some could have been Matt, for example, in Busted, or Charlie, probably not, but any other songwriters who have worked with them, often the producer, could have contributed it. I'm also going to be looking at other projects James Bourne has been involved with, and that's why it's James Bourne lyrics instead of Busted lyrics. There could have been other collaborators on those songs which contributed that, but it's a good guess, it's a good hazard of a guess that they're probably his, because he has a certain style of writing and it's really unique to him, which is a big giveaway that it's from his brain because you know the sort of words he writes. Now, this is an idea I've wanted to do for a while because there's always been lyrics which have stood out to me when I've heard. When I initially thought, okay, I'm going to do it now, it was good timing. It was really good timing because I thought, well, Busted and McFly are doing their joint McFly versus Busted tour soon, and now they're now doing it. And I thought that would be perfect timing for this, very relevant, I suppose. Unfortunately, since then, James Bourne has been took off the tour, at least for the foreseeable future, because of some mystery illness and personal illness, which we are not aware of what it is, but we know that he's not well enough to join the tour. Now, of course, condolences for him. Feel, get well soon, James. So it did make me wonder, is this now the best timing to do the video, or is it bad taste or bad timing? And then I thought, well, I'm not going for him here. I am a big fan of him. I do think I love his lyrics and I love his songwriting. And it's just gentle teasing, gentle ribbon. So, no offense to anybody if any of this does seem bad taste. I'm not taking the piss out of him properly. I'm just having a laugh, doing some gentle ribbing, and it's just for fun. And I am celebrating him as an artist because I do really, really like him. I am a big fan. So, no offense, of course, meant to James when I talk about these lyrics. I am a massive fan of him. Okay, so here we go. I think we need to start off with the song which put them on the map, the first single they released, and of course, the first song on the actual album, What I Go to School For. Now, of course, it's chock full of lyrics, it's very tongue-in-cheek, it's a very fun song, telling the story of fancying a teacher at your school, and that being the reason you would attend. Of course, you've got those, I fight my way to the front of class to get the best view of her ass. I drop a pencil on the floor, she bends down and shows me more. Of course, famous line, very funny. Why not? Why not? You want to see her? You're gonna get to the front of the class. You want to get the best view. Okay, fair enough. She's dropping a pencil. You can't help yourself. Okay, fair enough. Of course, it's dated. It is from 2002, but written, I think, around 2001. But probably wouldn't be written nowadays. It's a bit, you know. I mean, nowadays people would, but at the time, fun lyrics. What's the song's about? It's fun. It's cool. But that's not the one that I would like to draw attention to. I want to draw attention to the fourth verse. I climb a tree outside her home to make sure that she's alone. I see her in her underwear. I can't help but stop and stare. You're climbing her tree. Actually climbing her tree. Like trespassing on her property. And staring at her in her home. Now that's just criminal. Fair enough, before you're in school. Bit weird, but after all, we can get away with that. You know, it's just a bit silly. He's young. Silly stuff. Can't help it. But actually going to her house and trespassing onto her property and climbing her tree and looking at her through her house. Now that's a bit far. That is a bit dubious, I would say. Now another big hit of theirs was, of course, Year 3000 from the same album. Tells the story of a time traveler coming to them, taking them to the future, and showing them what the world is now like. And they say what they see. Now, it's a cool song. Everyone knows that chorus. Lots of great lyrics in it. Again, telling that story. Something they do very well. One of those on there. Triple-breasted woman, swim around town, totally naked. That lyric always stood out to me. I mean, what is the benefit to having three breasts? Like, okay, the reason why people gain certain features is for evolution, is for survival. Why would getting three breasts be more beneficial than having two? Do we need more milk in the future and we need to resort to that or something? I don't know. But that is one what always stood out to me. I don't understand why that would be something which we would have in the future. Now, another big hit of theirs was Sleeping with the Light On. Very good song. It showed a change in pace and a change in style for Busted early on. It's a nice little ballad. Really fun song. Some great lyrics there. I mean, the idea of sleeping with the light on because someone's not with you right there is funny. It's like a nightmare so bad you need to have the light on. That's funny. But that's not the thing which I wanted to pay attention to. It's actually that big chorus everyone thinks they know. Now, I feel her slipping through my fingers. Now she's gone. I'll sleep with the light on. Fine. And sharks swim through my veins now. That she's gone. I'll sleep with the light on. It always sounded, and I think a lot of people thought it was shocks, but it's actually sharks. That always thought, why? Why is it sharks? Why are sharks swimming through your veins? What exactly does that mean? What is the reason for sharks? That one always stood out to me. I always think that maybe someone erroneously put it as sharks in some lyric book. Maybe on the linear notes on the album booklet, maybe. And then they just went with it. Oh yeah, sharks, let's just say that. Because someone got it wrong, so they just said, yeah, no, it's actually sharks. Not shocks, like you would think it is and what it sounds like. There we go. I actually thought that was a misheard lyric when I first heard that. I thought that it sounds like saying sharks. And they actually are. So, there we go. Now, that first album is full of great singles, of course, what made them famous, but also some brilliant album tracks. There are some really creative songs on there with brilliant stories, and the lyrics really go well with that. One of my favourites on there is Dawson's Geek. Now, that tells the story of the singer being frustrated by somebody they know who is a bit too obsessed with the show Dawson's Creek, which was very big at the time. And so they obsess over it and they shape their life around that. There's lyrics alluding to the different things they do throughout, which is quite funny. The ladder by your bedroom window really takes the piss. That's funny. Naming your dog Pacey. That's funny. But so far, so good. It's a funny song. It's unique. It's interesting. It's what shows their creativity, James Bond's creativity. But what I want to draw attention to is a bit later on. In Around the Bridge, I guess I'll have to wait for your life to be over. That's a bit far, isn't it? Waiting for someone's life to be over. Something, it upsets you that much that they're obsessed with this show that you have to wait for their life to be over. That's a bit far, really. I think you're taking that a bit far there, James. I always thought that was a bit, oh, okay. That's a bit, really? You have to wait for your life to be over because of it? Now for a song from their second album, A Present for Everyone, in 2004. Now, they'd continued success with more hit singles on this second album, including Air Hostess. Now, this tells the story of going on a plane. You know, he's a very versatile writer, but of course, we had the first album with a song about fancying your teacher. The second one is about fancying Air Hostess. That's the song on the second one. Some brilliant lyrics in there, though, which are rightfully called out a lot of the time. Again, just fun, silly lyrics in that song. It's a silly song. He's trying to be silly. That was their thing. Let's not forget. It was the silliness. It was the kind of like bad boy image of writing these silly, funny things. It's very off the time, very early 2000s, and it was what they did. That was their stick, really. So there's nothing bad there. It's a fun song. Of course, you've got that thing in the chorus, I messed my pants when we flew over France, which, brilliant. Shows their humour, shows, the sort of stuff they like to write and what made them so lovable and what people loved about them so much was that silliness. I do remember there's that funny clip on the X Factor where a contestant went on and sang it, and I think the judges, I think Simon would have knew because he tried to sign them when they first started. I think he knew, but he kept quiet. But Louis Walsh and Sharon Osbourne are just pissing themselves laughing at this lyric, and they're thinking, "Oh my god!" And I remember on the off-camera interview, the two-camera interview, um, Louis Walsh goes, "Where do they get these people?" And it's like, no, he hasn't made up. You're actually making fun of James Bourne here. The contestant didn't make up that lyric. It was already written. This is a song. They didn't make it up. This is a published song out there. So it's quite funny. He's laughing at that, thinking the contestant's a bit crazy, when actually this is a song. This just is what was written. That's the sort of stuff. But that's not the lyric that I did want to pay attention to. The lyric in question was this one. Throwing peanuts down the aisle. Stupid, but it made you smile. Funny for two reasons. One, when you hear it on the recording, it can sound like a misheard lyric. You know, if you have a dirty mind or whatever, if you listen to it a certain way, it does sound like it says throwing peanuts down the aisle. It does sound like Matt sings that. But he doesn't. But so that's not their fault. That's me. That's not James's fault. That's me being silly. But I have always thought that. But the thing what anyone can notice is that stupid, but it made you smile. Why would you smile at that? Like, she's gonna have to pick them up. You know, cabin crew, famously limited work staff. You know, there's not many people who are on that, so there's only a few people who could pick it up, and most likely will be the hostess or one of them. So why is she smiling at that? He's just made more work for her. He just made it more difficult. She's gonna have to pick them. Good one, James. Good. Oh, gotta pick these up now. It's just a bit. I don't know why you would smile at that. And also, a bit selfish. What about people with nut allergies? So, smiling at that, actually, someone could die. So that's a bit silly, isn't it? I know this was probably before peanuts were banned on flights, but still would have been aware of peanut allergies. A bit selfish, really, throwing peanuts around. And yeah, why is she smiling at that? Why is she smiling at a really stupid thing, which really inconveniences her? God knows. Now, one of their less enduring hits is from that same album, A Present for Everyone, Who's David? This one, I think it did really well in the charts at the time. I think it might have been number 2 or number 1. I think it were number 1. It did really well, but I do think this is one of their less remembered hits. For one reason or another, I don't know why. It is one of their less remembered hits. Who's David? Telling the story of the singer's girlfriend being a bit promiscuous, allegedly, you know, and we'll get to that. And he basically tells the story of his frustrations with that. One of the lines people do often like to bring up on that is, "You stupid line, B-word, who's David?" I do remember there's a recent interview where he does comment on, "Oh god, we can't say that anymore," and then Charlie is like, "Well, I don't think it ever was okay." You know, it is quite funny that is on the song, just calling someone a B-word. And in the interview he goes, "Yeah, but what if she was a B-word?" It is pretty funny that is in the song, and it is bleeped on subsequent versions. Now, if you listen to it, it's bleeped anyway, you find it. But I think at the time you were able to hear it just unfiltered, just like that. But it is quite funny that he'd written that in the song. But that is not the thing I want to pay attention to on this one. I want to pay attention to the last line, one of the last lines in the chorus. Somebody saw you sleep around the town, and I've got proof because the word's going around. That's not proof. Famously, word going around isn't proof. That's hearsay. That's whispers. That's Chinese whispers. That's rumors. Famously, not proof. That one always stood out to me because it's not true. Actually, I thought, wait, isn't that a bit? Surely it's not proof because the word's going around, but that's not proof. Now, one of their underrated hits from that same album is actually one of my favourite songs by them. She Wants to Be Me. It's a really catchy song. You've got a brilliant chorus. They work with The Matrix, which I'm pretty sure are the team who worked with Avril Lavigne, which would have been around the same time, which is pretty interesting. But it's a really catchy song. It sees them trying to be a bit more pop punk. James loves pop punk music. That's what Silly later. And this is, I suppose, there are attempts to ape that sound a bit more. And it works well. It's a very catchy song. Again, very of its time. It tells the tale of a super fan being so obsessed with him that she tries to style herself after him, and the alienation what goes along with her copying him. Some great lyrics what will drive that home. Same t-shirt and sunglasses. She cut her hair like me. There's also a funny line, now she stands up to pee. Which doesn't quite. And in the recent version, when they redid a lot of their songs for a new sort of rejuvenated version, they did a collaboration version, and they did it with Bowling for Soup, and Jared Reddick is on that song. Love Bowling for Soup, by the way, another one of my favorites. And when he says that, he goes, I don't even do that. He's got a lot of funny little ad-libs and little reactions to different lines they say, and that's one of them, and it's a really, really funny thing when he says that. Now, as a whole, as a song, you could say, oh, what's his problem with someone wanting to be a bit boyish? You know, fair enough. Nowadays, no one bats an eyelid. Transgender, very accepted. It's a different time. Maybe, you know, at the time it was a bit stranger for people. It was a bit unusual and different for them. So it wouldn't hit the same as it does now. And you could also argue that it's not the fact that she's being more boyish, but just more the fact that she is being a bit more like him. And the weirdness what goes along with her completely copying him, especially when you've got that sting at the end where that she's sort of like changed places with him, that he's in a mental asylum and that she's come to visit him, but they think it's him and he's now in the loony bin. Brilliant. So that's not a problem. The lyric that I wanted to shine a light on was this one. I'm saying something's wrong. She's out back playing soccer. Like, okay, attitudes back then were a bit different, but something what was always okay was playing soccer. That's not an issue. How dare she? How dare she play football? What's she doing? How dare she play soccer? Just the fact that is such a strange thing for him. The fact that she's playing football, girls can't play football. What the hell? What's she? Has he never seen Bend It Like Beckham? That's a bit older, isn't it? What does he think of the Lionesses? Yeah, so that line always stood out to me as a funny line, since it's not just of its time, it's never been a problem, women playing football, but he is so shocked and alienated by her playing soccer, which has always made me laugh. And of course, the team of the Matrix are, I'm pretty sure, an American team, and of course, this is them trying to ape pop punk. So, and pop punk, of course, is very big in America. The use of the word soccer, of course, for a British band, where we call it football, which I just did a few times there. I previously mentioned about Jarrett Reddick guesting on the new version. When he says soccer, he goes, "I thought it was football." So that's another funny line of that. Basically, paying attention to the fact that actually, why is he using the word soccer when he's British? But it's because they're trying to ape a sort of American style of music. So that's why. So that's another funny thing there. What makes me laugh on the new version. An intentionally funny part though. Now, I'm now moving on to the period where Busted were no longer, they had just broken up. Um, James's next project was a band called Son of Dog. Um, I previously mentioned that he loved pop punk music, and this is his full foray into pop punk music with a lot of American musicians. This is him really paying homage to that sort of stuff. And you get some great lyrics on this album where he tries that tongue in cheek style of humor, which also powered a lot of his earlier stuff, but here he goes for it even more. Now, a lot of the album, I think because he's trying to ape pop punk, he alludes to school a lot. He does allude to school a lot, and I think that's because a lot of pop punk music at the time was, of course, associated with high school, American high schools, and a lot, you had films like American Pie, where they were in high schools, and pop punk music was the big soundtracks to those sort of films. So there are a lot of references to school in this, which is a bit. I do remember reading a few contemporary reviews at the time, which did say that the music was becoming a bit more outdated, and that it was a bit strange that they were alluding to school a lot. But it's the style, it's normal, it's for a younger audience, that's fine, no problem. One of the songs on there is Little Things, which basically tells of the classic story of fancying somebody and noticing little things they do what make you like them. They're little small things, but they add up to become your crush, because of these things. I'm staring while you play around with that pencil in your hair. Of course, a very school reference there with just the fact that you've got a pencil. Who has a pencil when they're older? It's a very school item. I mean, it does say earlier in that it's summer, everybody's out, and you're right over there. So why she got a pencil anyway? Everyone's out and she's just there with a pencil. Wow, this is fun. I'm loving this. But that's okay. He fancies her. Okay, that's normal. He's relating to something. Maybe when he's younger, he's alluding to a younger audience who can relate to this music. He's trying to make pop punk music for a younger audience, which, okay, cool. There was a vision with this album, I think. But something what doesn't really go with that sentiment very well is this lyric in the song. I saved up for binoculars. I'll read the whole thing. I saved up for binoculars. I bought them last weekend to watch you playing badminton with all your S word friends, promiscuous friends, whatever. You saved up for binoculars. For binoculars. Oh, no, again, just criminal. I mean, I think by now we've established that James just loves to perv on people. First he's climbing a tree outside someone's home, now he's saving up for binoculars. And that always stood out to me, like, why is he... Again, it's just criminal. Like, there's one thing being tongue-in-cheek and silly, but... And you're young, you do silly things when you're young, but saving up for binoculars so you can stare at somebody... Ooh. That's a bit... To watch them playing badminton of all things as well, and you just think, like, where is he? Like, they're playing badminton, but where is he standing to watch them play this? Where's his vantage point? Where is he sitting? I can just imagine them, like, noticing him and just being like, binoculars! Someone with binoculars! Oh, it's that guy who was watching you with that pencil, wasn't it? Oh no, that weird guy. Oh my god. And the fact that they're S-word, slutty, promiscuous, when they're in school, apparently, is a bit... You can't be, can you? I don't think you can be, unless they're going a bit far, that young. But, shame on her for wanting relationships, It's okay to stare at her with binoculars. That's fine. Save up for binoculars. Now, the last one, which I wanted to properly zone in on, this one I think is a bit more intentional. It's different. The reason why I included this one is because I don't know if it'll make everyone laugh, but it made me laugh. It's a personal favourite of mine. I'll explain afterwards, and I alluded to in the start. There are so many I could have included in here, which I didn't for my own reasons. And I was wondering, should I include this one? Because I suppose it's not dubious, per se. It's not proper. Wait, that's a bit weird. What the hell, like some of the other ones were. I just love it, and I just wanted to pay attention because it's not intentionally funny. I don't think it's trying to be funny, but just the wording, and it's when someone's being creative and they're being fun, but it comes across as funny to you. You just find it funny. You may not find this funny, but I do. I do love this. Shipwrecked in Atlantis from Busted's most recent original studio album. They have subsequently recorded, as I mentioned earlier, a new version of songs, of their classic songs, a new album of new versions of their old songs. This was their last full length, halfway there, in 2019. Really good record. Really short. Only has 10 tracks, but it is a really, really good album. I do love that one. I love all these albums, by the way. There are ones in between, which I haven't mentioned here. Which I also really, really love. But Shipwrecked in Atlantis is from that album. It tells the story of just that crash landing in Atlantis and living life down there. Explain what you see and living life down there. James has since also confirmed that this takes place after Air Hostess. So there's a bit of a continuation story-wise. Of course, it also feels a lot like Year 3002 because they're underwater again. James obviously loves being underwater because suddenly they're underwater again. Living life like that. And again, you're explaining what you see down there. Brilliant song though, really catchy. The one thing is it very obviously borrows, not even just borrows, just straight up copies First Date by Blink-182. This was noted by a lot of people at the time. It's just in style and melody. That's okay for style, you have to be inspired, but the melody is pretty much exactly it. Especially, it's especially noticeable in that last part at the end. I'm not sure if what you'll call that, if you call it the coda or whatever, but that part at the end where they go, "I'll never forget this, shipwrecked in Atlantis." It's a lot like the ending of First Date, and a lot of people called this out at the time. Um, I am surprised. I suppose they're not very litigious, but I am very surprised that no one took legal action with this one. I'm glad they didn't, because I do love the song. But it is weird when I am listening to it, because it's like I'm loving a song which is actually more another song, really. But I love the lyrics. There we go. I love James Bourne's lyrics, and this has some great lyrics in it. Namely, this one in the bridge. I just love it. Although this place is very nice, the food is kinda overpriced. Why does this chicken taste like fish? Or is it just a vegan dish? I love that. I really love that. And I don't know if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't say that. I am recounting these lyrics from genius.com. I think these might be wrong. I'm pretty sure it doesn't say, why does this chicken taste like fish? Or is it just a vegan dish? I thought it was, what does this drink consist of? Fish? Or is it just a vegan dish? So I don't know if I'm wrong there, because that was the part I always found funny. I always thought, what does this drink consist of? Fish? Or is it just a vegan dish? I thought just a really brilliant thing in songwriting what always made me laugh, which probably didn't mean to, but I found brilliant. I just love the wording of that. I love this. It's one of those things I suppose you can't really explain why you think that's funny, but I thought that was funny. But I think that's wrong on genius.com. I'm pretty sure it's not right, unless I'm wrong though. I could be wrong, and you gotta trust lyrics more, and I'm sure things are double crossed and double verified and made sure things are correct before they print it, before they write it, but I'm pretty sure it's what does this drink consist of fish. Someone tell me in the comments if you know what it is. Now I hope you enjoyed this video just as much as I enjoyed making it. It was so fun going through these lyrics and remembering all those songs I loved from a songwriter I do adore. Again, like I said, just teasing. No offense caused to anyone. No insult to James. I think he's a great songwriter with really unique writing, which has always stood out to me. It's always been a big part for me, and of course, that is something he does very well. And when he writes his songs, that is a big focus point. I think the lyric writing is a very big thing for him, and it's a big thing I notice about him. So that's why I love these, and that's the style he goes for. He writes songs with creative ideas, and then he comes up with silly lyrics or reinforce that idea, which he does very well. It's just from time to time there are some things he writes which are a bit, huh? Which anyone can do. Anyone can do. And there are many songs which I could off pointed out here. Of course, like I said, it is a lot of the time it is intentional. He's trying to be silly. He's trying to be fun. He's taking inspiration from the writers and musicians he loves, and he is writing songs which are creative and silly and funny, and that was part of their appeal. That was part of Bastard's appeal. Part of a James Bourne pen project's appeal is the funniness and the silliness. So there are so many songs which I could off mentioned in this, which I didn't because I knew they were intentionally funny, and I wanted to pay attention more to the ones which were more, I suppose, strange lyrics, which might be a bit more embarrassing looking back on, or a bit dubious. I do use the word dubious a lot because that is what I was going for here. A lot of silly songs, like that first album particularly. A lot of silly things. There's Britney, I do love on that first album, All the Way. And then you've also got other projects. He was, of course, part of the Mutt Busted album, which is a brilliant album. Some really good songs on there. Really catchy and great lyrics. What, again, tell really unique stories, and the lyrics work for that very well. There was no silly ones I could really put that because, again, a lot of the things were intentionally funny. Some brilliant songs on that. Before You Knew Me has some brilliant lyrics on there. So many on there. That's a whole thing in and of itself because I do love that album. There is a lot of brilliant songs on that album, which I love. So there weren't really many I could bring up on here, which were dubious because very well written album and no forks in the road on that album. There are also the more recent James Bourne albums, which the two solo albums, Safe Journey Home and Sugar Beach, which have a lot of silly songs on them. And I don't love them, if I'm honest. They're not as... I do love James as a writer, but I think those two solo albums since, there's some good songs on it, like The Beatles, I really like on Safe Journey Home. Some really catchy ones. But nothing as what sticks out to you, I suppose, because the style is much more poppy. It's much more, and I love pop music, but just the style of pop music he does on this, I'm not massively crazy for. Correct me if I'm wrong, it might not be pop. I think it is, but just that style and tone I weren't massively a fan of. A lot of silly songs, X-Man and Sugar Beach, Batman's House, Safe Journey Home. Some crazy stuff. Which is funny. But intentionally funny, and he's trying here. I think he's really going for the silliness and the funniness for those albums. I think he's trying to be silly in his songwriting, so I didn't include them on here because I think a lot of them are intentionally funny in a different way to the original albums where he was trying to be tongue-in-cheek funny, and more just trying to be weird on the more recent ones. It's weird. Cat got your breakfast. That's another one, a recent one. There's a lot of meow sounds and noises. It's silly. But yeah, that was the reason why I didn't include loads and loads. I wanted to keep it a more concise list because I realised what I can be like. This is probably still going to be long anyway. Or it might not. Maybe I've done a really good job. Who knows? But I know I can waffle on a bit and talk too long or whatever. So I try to keep it concise. I didn't want to include too many lyrics, and I wanted to make sure it was strictly my criteria for what makes them dubious. Go listen to him, of course. I mean, I don't have to tell you to go listen to Busted, but if you don't already like them, I would suggest listen to a lot of their stuff. Brilliant stuff. And a lot of James's stuff as well. Like Son of Dork, like Mutt Busted. And you may like... He's also got a brilliant solo record under the name Future Boy, which is really, really good, which he did before the recent solo albums. So it's under another artist name. And I think a lot of the time things get mislabeled to him on Spotify. If you go on his Spotify, a lot of the time there'll be things on there which aren't made by him. So for him, it's only that first record what actually is his. A lot of the other stuff which you find on there isn't his. It just gets misattributed to him. It's called Volume 1. It's a very good album. More electronic, dancey music. Is really fun. Really fun album on there. So yeah, listen to James. All of the songs which I mentioned on this video will be compiled on a playlist on Spotify, which you can find under the artist name RCF Tube, which is the same as the YouTube here. I use here, which features all of the songs in this video, James Bourne's most dubious lyrics. And a little thing I've done is I've included a few of my own self-penned tracks. I only wrote the lyrics, but the self-penned tracks from me. So I've took the piss out of James a lot. I've made laugh at some silly lyrics. You can now do it with mine if you so wish. Some of those tracks are from me, written by me under Bad Halloween, which are on that playlist too. So if you would like to, I mean, God knows I've gone into James. You can go listen to those if you would like, please. That'll be fun, but you don't have to. But yeah, go check out the playlist. I'll link that. But as I say, just wanted to highlight what a brilliant songwriter James is. Sometimes got some silliness, no harm meant to him. Really funny, unique, creative songwriter, and a great guy. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, I suppose. I know it's cringy to say it, but say it just in case, because who knows if one person does because of that. I'm currently at 33 at current time, of recording, so maybe make it 34, maybe even 35, who knows. But anyway, cheers. Thanks very much. Goodbye.